Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt something wasn't right? Maybe they smiled, but it didn't reach their eyes. Maybe their words sounded supportive, yet behind them was a quiet tension you couldn't explain. That feeling, subtle, uneasy, hard to name, is your intuition whispering the truth, because not everyone who claps for you wants to see you win. Not everyone who walks beside you is walking with pure intentions. Sometimes envy hides behind kindness. Sometimes falsehood wears the mask of friendship. We live in a world where appearance often matters more than authenticity. People perform goodness to be seen as good, not to be good. They show admiration while secretly competing with you in silence. And if you've ever felt confused by mixed signals, people who praise you one moment and undermine you the next, you are not imagining it. Envy and falsehood are real forces that drain your energy, distort your focus, and make you doubt your own light. But here's the truth. Recognizing them is not about judging others, it's about protecting your peace. Because when you understand how envy operates, when you learn how falsehood disguises itself, you stop taking things personally. You stop trying to prove your worth to those who never wanted to see it. You begin to walk differently, lighter, clearer, stronger. And that's when you start rising above the noise. You see, envy is not always loud. It often hides in silence, in subtle gestures, in the way someone downplays your achievements or changes the topic when you talk about something good in your life. Falsehood often comes dressed as over-attention, flattery without substance, support that disappears when you actually need it. And once you see these patterns, you begin to free yourself from the emotional confusion they cause. This awareness doesn't make you bitter, it makes you powerful. Because awareness brings peace. When you can see the difference between real and fake, between love and envy, between truth and manipulation, you no longer waste your time trying to please what was never meant to understand you. You start building a circle that reflects your values instead of questioning them. You surround yourself with those who don't feel threatened by your growth but inspired by it. That's why this message matters. Because too many people dim their light just to make others comfortable. Too many people doubt their success because someone else's silence made them feel guilty for it. But you are not here to shrink, you are here to expand. You are here to become aware, not afraid. And when you recognize envy and falsehood in others, you also begin to recognize authenticity in yourself. You begin to trust your instincts more. You learn that your energy is sacred and not everyone deserves access to it. So, stay with me until the end of this message, because we're going to uncover 10 powerful ways to recognize envy and falsehood in others, not to create division, but to build strength, not to judge, but to see clearly, not to push people away, but to stand in truth without apology. By the end, you will understand how to protect your peace without hardening your heart. You will see that clarity is not cruelty, it's self-respect. And once you know the signs, you will never again mistake envy for friendship or falsehood for loyalty. You'll walk through the world calm, grounded, and unshakable, because you will finally see what was hidden in plain sight. The first truth about envy is that it rarely shows itself openly. It hides behind smiles, polite words, and casual questions that sound caring but are meant to measure you. Envy studies you quietly. It watches how you move, how you speak, how you rise, and behind every observation is a comparison. When someone is truly happy for you, their energy feels light, freeing, open. But when envy exists, it feels heavy. You sense it in the air, a tension without words. Your spirit feels it even when your mind tries to ignore it. The envious person will never say, "I wish I had what you have." Instead, they disguise their insecurity as humor, sarcasm, or advice. They minimize your achievements, pretending it's nothing special. They might say, "You're lucky," as if what you earned came without effort. They might shift the focus, reminding you of your flaws when you're celebrating your progress. These are not coincidences. They are strategies of protection. Because envy is a wound disguised as indifference. It's pain wearing a smile. The mind that envies cannot celebrate because it is trapped in comparison. It measures self-worth through others' success and feels threatened when someone rises higher. But this is not about you. It's about their unresolved pain. Envy is born when someone sees in you what they gave up on in themselves. Your growth reminds them of their stagnation. Your courage exposes their fear. And instead of learning from your example, they resist it because it challenges their comfort. Understanding this is liberation. It teaches you that you don't have to explain your light to those living in shadow. You don't have to hide your strength to make others feel safe. You can still be kind, still be compassionate. But you no longer carry the weight of other people's discomfort. You stop apologizing for being who you are. You stop seeking validation from those who can't even validate themselves. That is how you begin to take your power back. Recognizing envy doesn't mean you respond with anger. It means you respond with awareness. It means you protect your peace by setting quiet boundaries. You no longer argue for your worth. You no longer chase approval. You simply rise, and in that rising, you reveal truth. The people who love you for real will celebrate your success because they see it as proof that dreams are possible. The ones who envy will distance themselves because your light exposes their darkness. Let them. It's not rejection, it's alignment. You must understand that your light will always trigger something in those who haven't found theirs. And that's okay. You weren't created to dim yourself for comfort. You were created to lead by example. Every time you rise despite resistance, you remind others that greatness requires honesty. You show that it's possible to grow without competing, to shine without pretending, to win without losing yourself. That's the kind of energy that transforms not only your life, but the lives of those ready to wake up. So when you sense envy around you, don't let it harden your heart. Let it refine your awareness. Let it remind you to be humble but strong, compassionate but clear. Keep shining, not to prove anything, but to live truthfully. Because your light isn't meant to please, it's meant to illuminate. And the moment you stop fearing who resents your glow is the moment you begin living freely, fully, and unshakably as yourself. Falsehood moves differently. It doesn't envy your success, it imitates it. It studies what makes you respected, what gives you light, and then it wears a version of it. Falsehood is a mirror that reflects your image, but without depth. It speaks the right words, performs the right gestures, and pretends to share your values, but there's no soul behind it. It is an act built on convenience, not conviction. These are the people who seem aligned with you when the path is easy, but vanish when truth demands loyalty. Their connection is conditional, and their support has a price. You can feel falsehood when words and energy don't match. They say, "I'm here for you," but their presence feels cold. They talk about honesty, but twist their tone when honesty exposes them. They speak about unity, but feed division when it benefits them. This inconsistency is your signal. It's the universe showing you who was sent to teach you discernment, not trust. Falsehood isn't always malicious. Sometimes it's just fear. Fear of being seen without the mask, fear of losing control, fear of being less than the image they've created. But no matter its reason, it poisons connection. It keeps everything shallow, performative, temporary. To recognize falsehood, you must listen deeper than words. Listen to silence. Silence is truth's shadow. It reveals what words hide. Notice how people act when no one's watching, when there's nothing to gain, when the spotlight fades. That's when truth or falsehood speaks the loudest. Real hearts don't need witnesses to be kind. Real loyalty doesn't need an audience to prove itself. Falsehood craves recognition because without validation, it disappears. You'll encounter people who pretend to care about your journey, but what they really want is proximity to your progress. They want the reflection of your glow, not the truth of your grind. They align themselves with your image, not your purpose. But when life tests you, their mask begins to slip. They hesitate to defend you. They change their tone depending on who's listening. They say less when you need more. That's how falsehood reveals itself, not through grand betrayal, but through small absences of integrity. When you see this, don't lose faith in people. Let it teach you boundaries without building walls. You don't need to harden. You just need to see clearly. Trust isn't blind. It's measured. It's not about suspicion. It's about awareness. You can still open your heart, but you learn to keep it guarded with wisdom. You learn to value actions over promises, consistency over charm, presence over words. That is emotional maturity, the power to see people as they are, not as they present themselves to be. The most powerful thing you can do when faced with falsehood is remain authentic. Because truth doesn't chase approval. Truth doesn't perform. Truth just is. The more real you become, the less comfortable pretenders feel around you. Your authenticity exposes their act without you saying a word. So, keep standing in honesty even when it feels lonely, because the ones who belong with you will recognize it instantly. Real attracts real. There's a quiet strength in those who refuse to wear masks. A peace that can't be shaken by gossip, jealousy, or lies. That's the power of truth. It may be silent, but it never hides. When you live it, you become untouchable, because falsehood cannot survive where truth lives fully. So stay steady in who you are. Let your integrity be louder than anyone's performance, because in the end, masks always fall, but truth never does. When you start living truthfully, something powerful happens. The world begins to rearrange itself around your authenticity. People who once pretended to understand you start keeping their distance. Conversations that once felt easy now feel heavy. You begin to sense a quiet resistance from those who used to cheer for you. Don't mistake that shift for loss. It's growth. It's the natural consequence of rising into alignment. The higher your vibration, the more truth demands space. Anything that is false will naturally fall away. It's not punishment, it's purification. Envy and falsehood cannot survive in the same space as genuine self-awareness, because the moment you see them clearly, their power dissolves. You no longer respond emotionally to manipulation. You no longer chase validation from silence. You no longer confuse attention with loyalty. Instead, you observe, you notice, you understand. And with understanding comes peace. That peace is your new form of power. Quiet, grounded, and unstoppable. Many people fear losing others when they choose authenticity. But what you truly lose are illusions. Illusions of support, illusions of friendship, illusions of love that existed only when you were small enough not to threaten anyone's comfort. The real ones remain. The real ones grow with you. They're the ones who celebrate you not because it benefits them, but because your growth reminds them that they can rise too. That kind of connection is sacred. It's rare, and it's worth waiting for. When you operate from truth, your energy becomes sharper. You start reading intentions, not words. You start hearing tone, not compliments. You start feeling presence, not promises. That awareness keeps you free from emotional traps, because people can lie with words, but not with energy. The energy of envy feels draining. The energy of falsehood feels confusing. But the energy of truth feels clean. It calms your nervous system. It strengthens your focus. It restores your confidence. That's how you know you're surrounded by what's real. You don't need confrontation to reveal truth. Time does it for you. Consistency does it for you. When you keep showing up in integrity, life exposes everything that isn't. That's why patience is strength. Let people reveal themselves. Let actions speak. Let silence tell its story. Truth doesn't rush to prove. It allows. It observes. It trusts that what's meant to remain will remain, and what's built on deceit will collapse under its own weight. There is beauty in reaching a point where you no longer react to envy or deceit. You simply recognize it, and you move differently. You invest your energy in creation, not correction. You focus on growth, not approval. That's when you start feeling free, not the kind of freedom that comes from isolation, but the freedom that comes from clarity. You no longer carry confusion about who's for you and who's against you, because you've learned to read truth in behavior, not words. Your peace will become your protection, your silence will become your strength, and your growth will become your answer. You won't need to expose anyone, you won't need to prove anything, you'll simply rise. Because when you rise from a place of truth, everything false falls away without a fight. That is how you win, not by outshouting the noise, but by outlasting it. The authentic always outlasts the artificial, always. When truth becomes your foundation, solitude no longer feels empty, it feels clean, it feels like breathing again after being underwater for too long. You stop fearing distance, because distance is where you can finally hear your own voice without interruption. It's where the noise fades and clarity begins to speak. You start realizing that not everyone deserves access to your energy, your dreams, or your time. You begin to understand that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's the act of choosing truth over attachment, clarity over chaos. This is where transformation truly begins. When you stop chasing people who confuse your spirit, when you stop begging for honesty from those addicted to pretending, you reclaim your power. Because energy flows where attention goes. Every time you try to convince someone of your worth, you hand them your energy. Every time you defend your truth to those committed to misunderstanding you, you drain your own light. But when you pull that energy back, when you choose silence instead of argument, peace instead of reaction, you rise. That's emotional mastery. That's strength disguised as calm. The mind learns to recognize patterns long before the heart wants to accept them. And that's where pain often lives, in the space between knowing and letting go. You know someone is not right for your growth, but the heart still hopes they'll change. You know their energy drains you, but a part of you remembers the version they once pretended to be. This conflict keeps you trapped. But freedom begins when you honor what you know, not what you wish. When you start trusting your intuition more than your memory. Because memory can be deceived, but energy never lies. You don't need to expose those who live in envy or falsehood. The truth reveals itself naturally through repetition. People may fool you once with charm, but time exposes character. And when it does, your only job is to step back without resentment, forgive without returning, wish them peace without allowing re-entry into your energy field. That's how you rise without anger. That's how you protect your light without losing your heart. As you walk this path, something deeper awakens inside you, a new standard. You no longer crave attention, you crave alignment. You no longer seek validation, you seek vibration. You begin to measure connection, not by how much someone says they care, but by how consistently they show up in truth. This shift is everything. It filters your circle naturally, leaving only those who match your frequency of peace, growth, and honesty. You'll notice that your world becomes quieter but more meaningful. Fewer people, but deeper connection. Less noise, but more peace. This is the reward of awareness. You no longer live reacting to others' shadows. You live creating from your own light. And once you reach that level, envy and falsehood lose their hold completely. They may still exist around you, but they cannot reach you. Your energy becomes too high, your focus too strong, your boundaries too clear. You are no longer controlled by fear of loss, judgment, or betrayal. You are guided by truth. And that guidance leads to peace that doesn't shake when people leave or disappoint you. Because the truth doesn't need company, it only needs commitment. When you choose that commitment daily, you become unshakable. You become someone whose peace cannot be faked, whose energy cannot be manipulated, whose spirit cannot be dimmed. That's the quiet power of walking in truth. It doesn't shout. It simply radiates. When you start radiating truth, something magnetic happens. You draw out both the best and the worst in others. The honest are drawn to your energy because it feels like home. The deceitful feel exposed, even if you've said nothing at all. Your presence becomes a mirror. It reflects everything people try to hide. And this is why walking in authenticity requires courage. Because when you carry light, you will always awaken shadows. Some will thank you for it. Others will resent you for reminding them of what they've buried. But none of that should make you shrink. The world doesn't need smaller versions of truth. It needs those brave enough to live it fully. It takes maturity to stand calm in the face of hidden envy or quiet falsehood. It takes strength to see manipulation and still choose grace. But this is what separates reaction from mastery. Anyone can match energy. Few can rise above it. The moment you choose not to fight shadows, you transcend them. You stop being a participant in their chaos and become an observer of it. That's not weakness, it's control. Emotional control is the purest form of strength. It says, I see you, but I will not lose myself because of you. That is real power, the kind no one can take away. You begin to realize that peace is not the absence of envy or deceit around you. It's the ability to remain unshaken when they appear. Because they will appear. The more you grow, the more mirrors you'll trigger. Some will reflect love, others will reflect insecurity. But your job is not to change their reflection. Your job is to remain aligned with your own truth. When you do that, life becomes simpler. You stop trying to decode people. You stop taking things personally. You learn to respond only to clarity, not confusion. Envy and falsehood thrive on attention. They feed on reaction. But when you give them nothing, no energy, no explanation, they starve. You begin to understand that silence is not surrender, it's strategy. It's the way peace wins without a fight. Every time you remain calm in the presence of chaos, you teach your mind that you are in control. Every time you respond with stillness instead of anger, you strengthen your inner authority. That authority is priceless. It's the force that turns confusion into clarity, pain into wisdom, and betrayal into freedom. This level of awareness changes the way you move through life. You stop needing to prove anything to anyone. You stop rushing to defend your character. You let truth speak in its own time. Because truth never needs urgency. It's patient, steady, undeniable. When you trust that, your whole energy changes. You walk differently. You talk differently. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You let them think what they want, while you continue creating, building, and evolving. And soon the noise fades. The opinions lose power. The envy loses access. The falsehood loses its audience. You rise beyond it, not with arrogance, but with grace. Because when your inner world becomes calm, the outer world can no longer control you. You no longer react to darkness. You illuminate it simply by being who you are. That's the essence of strength. Not aggression, but stillness. Not revenge, but release. And from that space, every part of your life begins to shift. You stop surviving the world and start shaping it through the quiet authority of your truth. ChatGPT said, Siburi, the deeper you walk into truth, the more you understand that peace is not found in what you gain, but in what you release. You stop needing to control how others see you. You stop needing to be understood by those who choose to misunderstand. You begin to free yourself from the weight of proving, explaining, and convincing. That freedom is quiet, but it's powerful. It feels like stepping out of a crowded room and finally breathing fresh air. You no longer carry the emotional debris of other people's projections. You walk lighter because your heart is no longer occupied by noise that doesn't belong to you. This is what self-respect feels like. It's not loud. It doesn't demand attention. It simply knows its worth and protects it. You start to realize that not everyone deserves access to your peace, and not every conversation deserves your participation. You learn to discern between those who come with pure intentions and those who come to drain your clarity. And when you finally stop fighting for space in places that don't value truth, you make room for people who do. The universe responds instantly to that energy shift. It removes what confuses you and replaces it with what aligns with you. Every person you lose on the path of truth creates space for someone who matches your vibration. Every goodbye that feels painful now becomes a door to something purer later. And though it may hurt, that pain is sacred. It's growth disguised as loss. It's life's way of showing you that peace sometimes requires separation. That peace sometimes requires walking alone until authenticity catches up to you in another soul. So never mourn what leaves when you rise in truth, because what stays after that is real. As you move through this transformation, your perception sharpens. You begin to see that envy and falsehood were never your enemies. They were your teachers. They taught you to trust your intuition. They taught you to value your energy. They taught you that not everyone will clap when you win, and that's okay. They showed you that loyalty is proven in silence, not in applause. Without them, you wouldn't have learned discernment. Without them, you wouldn't have learned how to walk in peace without needing permission. Pain became the path to wisdom, and wisdom is what keeps you from repeating the same cycles. This level of awareness doesn't make you cold, it makes you conscious. It allows you to love without losing yourself. It allows you to forgive without returning. It allows you to see people's pain without taking responsibility for healing it. That's what balance feels like. Empathy with boundaries. Compassion with clarity. You give from overflow, not emptiness. You love from strength, not fear. And the more you live that way, the more peace becomes your default state. Your calm becomes a shield. Your silence becomes language. Your energy becomes self-explanatory. You don't chase clarity anymore because you are clarity. You don't seek truth because you embody it. You've become what you once searched for, a steady presence in a chaotic world. That's the highest level of awareness, when you no longer need to expose darkness because your light makes it visible. That's when you truly understand that every test was preparation, every betrayal was direction, and every moment of confusion was simply guiding you toward this strength you now carry quietly within. Once you reach the point where your peace no longer depends on other people's behavior, you've stepped into true freedom. You stop reacting to every shift in energy around you. You stop internalizing moods that don't belong to you. Instead, you observe quietly with the confidence of someone who has learned that not everything deserves a response. That's not indifference, it's maturity. It's the wisdom that comes from understanding that chaos only controls you when you engage with it. When you stay centered, falsehood collapses under the weight of its own inconsistency. You don't have to fight lies. Truth dismantles them in silence. This inner stillness doesn't mean you've stopped feeling. It means you've started mastering your emotions instead of being mastered by them. You begin to understand that emotional intelligence is not the absence of emotion. It's the redirection of it. It's learning to turn pain into power, betrayal into boundaries, and envy into empathy. When you no longer react impulsively, you create space for awareness to lead. That's where clarity lives. Not in noise, but in stillness. There's a deep kind of confidence that grows from choosing not to participate in drama. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. You realize your energy is too valuable to waste on convincing others of your truth. You begin to understand that peace isn't something you chase, it's something you protect. It's already inside you. You just stop giving it away to the wrong places. Every time you walk away from unnecessary conflict, you strengthen that peace. Every time you choose silence over argument, you feed it. And eventually, peace becomes your natural state, no matter who's watching or how loud the world becomes. When envy or deceit shows up again, you'll notice it immediately. Not with anger, but with awareness. You'll see through the words, the tone, the intention. You'll understand it's not personal, it's projection. People can only meet you at the level of their own healing. If they haven't faced their insecurities, your light will feel like an attack. But you'll no longer take it to heart. You'll simply wish them clarity, then return to your calm. That's what it means to rise above. It's not superiority, it's serenity. It's understanding that your reaction is the invitation and silence is the boundary. This awareness shifts everything. Relationships that once drained you will lose their grip. You'll stop trying to fix people who choose to stay broken. You'll stop explaining your intentions to those committed to misunderstanding them. Instead, you'll let alignment do the sorting. You'll learn that the right energy never needs to be chased. It recognizes you instantly. And the wrong energy eventually removes itself when it can no longer feed on your attention. Living this way doesn't isolate you, it refines you. You become selective, not guarded. You open your heart, but you keep your peace. You love people deeply, but you no longer ignore truth to keep them close. That balance is what turns strength into serenity. It's what allows you to walk through life unbothered, unattached, and deeply present. Because when you master inner stillness, the world loses its power to shake you. You see everything clearly, move intentionally, and speak only when your words add value. That is the quiet revolution of inner peace. The point where authenticity becomes your armor and no falsehood can ever touch you again. The more you choose peace over reaction, the more your energy begins to transform. You stop vibrating at the frequency of tension and start radiating calm authority. People notice it, even if they can't explain it. They feel something different about you, something unshakable. You no longer rush to defend, to justify, or to explain yourself. You let truth speak in the quiet spaces between your actions. That kind of presence can't be faked. It comes from self-trust, from knowing that your worth isn't tied to anyone's opinion. The moment you no longer seek validation, you become untouchable, because what can be taken from someone who no longer looks outward to feel complete? Nothing. The mind becomes lighter when you no longer carry the burden of misunderstanding. You learn that peace doesn't come from controlling how others see you. It comes from controlling how you respond. When people project envy, you see pain. When they lie, you see fear. When they withdraw, you see insecurity. And suddenly, compassion replaces resentment. Because you understand that envy and falsehood are not strength, they are symptoms of inner disconnection. You no longer absorb that energy, you witness it with grace. That's not naivety, it's mastery. You stop fighting darkness, and instead become so full of light that darkness cannot reach you. This shift begins to shape every decision you make. You stop entertaining conversations that dilute your peace. You stop accepting invitations to chaos disguised as friendship. You stop over-explaining your silence to people who've already chosen noise. Every boundary you create becomes an act of self-love. Every time you choose calm over conflict, you remind yourself that your peace is not negotiable. And that's when life starts aligning effortlessly. You attract opportunities that reflect your new frequency. You meet people who speak the language of presence, not pretense. You realize that stillness isn't the absence of movement, it's the foundation of power. You will begin to notice how differently you breathe when you no longer live in defense. Your thoughts become clearer, your body feels lighter. The constant alertness that used to guard your peace fades away, replaced by quiet confidence. You don't need to watch your back when you walk in truth, because truth protects itself. This is what it means to be rooted, to be so grounded in authenticity that no wind of deceit can move you. People will still try to test you, but their energy will bounce off the calm you've built within. You no longer react, you choose, and choice is freedom. You realize that the goal was never to be liked, it was to be aligned, not to impress, but to express, to live in such truth that everything false naturally falls away. That's where strength meets serenity. That's where confidence no longer needs noise. And when you live from that place, everything you do carries a different vibration. Your presence becomes healing. Your silence becomes powerful. Your energy becomes an example. You stop teaching people with words and start teaching through the peace you embody.